More than 300 people teed off today on a course that was in remarkable shape considering the amount of rain to fall on it in the past week. Guy, Dean and Troy Waters were throwing their weight behind the day, but we're quite glad that their pugilistic skills far outweighed their putting ability. One of the major organisers of the day, along with the entrance police, was former top jockey Kevin Langby. Kevin and his wife Lynn suffered the tragedy of losing their son to heart disease and have set about raising funds under the banner of Have a Heart for the Kids.
Well, actually my wife thought of the name and started off, and fortunately I'm only helping. There's only two of us on the committee, and we've been running quite a few charities over the last 3 years since our little boy died under the same heading, Have a Heart for Kids, and this time the entrance police has organised a day, and while you're looking around here, it's a great turn-up.
Many of the leading jockeys from Sydney played in the day. Malcolm Johnson had the inside running from the first tee, but hot on his hammer was Chris Gwillan, a keen golfer off a handicap of 15. Dr Jeff Chapman was on hand to cast a trainer's view over the field and was impressed with the lineup. And for Senior Constable Gary Lambert, it was also a chance for the police to enhance their public image.
Well, we do copper caning at various times throughout the year, but the entrance police in particular, with the business community of the entrance, have done a fantastic job in putting this charity golf day on today in aid of Camperdown Children's Hospital.
The feeling of the day and the amount to be raised was summed up by Kevin Langby.
There was talk between 9 and 10,000, so maybe you get half of that or something anyway, because the hospital needs everything you can get, even something $1. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
The Hunter Ports Authority has prepared a strategic direction document which sets out its draft plans for the next 3 years. Buried among the many goals, aims and objectives, a recommendation that set the union movement afire. The authority wants to develop a commercially acceptable withdrawal from the business of wharfside services, or in plain English, sell off its cargo handling operations. Privatisation would see 270 jobs slashed from the authority's payroll. Some will be absorbed by the private sector, but unions fear many waterfront workers will be out of work. Grim-faced delegates from the 12 affected unions met today to discuss the ramifications of the document.
I think we've been caught unaware. I think, as I've indicated, we were participating in the process of improving the board's efficiency. And at the same time, there's been a document prepared behind the scenes, only became known to us through a leak, that the corporate strategy was going to seriously cut services, cut Maritime Service Board services, and inevitably shed that labour that had been participating in the structural efficiency process.
We have only just published the intent here. We haven't commenced detailed negotiations, and we are tabling the information at this time in order to commence the consultative process with both our workforce and our customers.
The document also endorses the sale of shares in the Kooragang coal loader, an investigation into the sale of the Kooragang 2 bulk unloader, and a move towards private investment in port infrastructure and services. However, the union movement remains opposed to the privatisation of any public assets, particularly those like the port, which are delivering healthy profits. With the Hunter Ports Authority's hand now on show, the unions will have their say when they address the organisation's 505 employees at a stop work meeting this Wednesday.
At the mass meeting on Wednesday, the workers will be having a look at as to whether they accept the propositions being forced upon them, whether they accept them passively, or whether they aren't prepared to accept them passively and perhaps take some action to reduce the impact upon the workforce.
At the State Rail Authority's Cardiff workshop, 350 employees clean, maintain and repair locomotives. The oil and grease washed off the engines is collected in holding tanks and separated for resale. It's clear, however, that the system isn't completely foolproof. This creek runs from the property. Today, no chemical analysis was needed to see it contains a lot more than water. It's easy to see that this isn't the first time this has happened either. As you can see, the banks all along here are stained with oil well up to the top, and the dirt itself is just impregnated with oil. We showed depot manager Len Howell the creek. For part of it at least, what's your feeling just looking down at all that oil?
The feeling is it shouldn't be there. I'm very concerned that it is there, and I'd like to know where it's coming from.
The creek actually discharges from a storm water drain. Unlike many other situations, however, that just makes the job of tracking down the origin of the spillage easier. And how far does that stormwater drain go under our feet?
All the way through the workshop.
And from there?
Out the other side to the end of the property.
And what happens then?
It's just collecting surface water at the extensions of the property.
And it stops there, really?
Yes.
So really, that's incriminating yourself, isn't it?
It is, yes.
There's no other place that oil could have come from except these workshops.
It would seem that way.
A quick search of the workshop failed to reveal any sign of the oil's point of entry. Mr. Howell says a full investigation will start tomorrow. He has good reason to be concerned. The state government has been cracking down on industrial polluters, and the SRA and the manager could both face fines of thousands of dollars. Ross Hampton, NBN News. While the Hooker Corporation was pursuing its dream shopping centre, the crossroads at Cardiff looked like becoming a major commercial centre. The dream was shattered when hookers went to the wall, and last night the grand vision slipped even further away. Some Lake Macquarie City aldermen wanted to move the council offices to the site as well, as it could be better served by public transport. Last night the council shelved those plans indefinitely. However, it's not necessarily the end of the story. Hooker's creditor, Beneficial Finances, has called in a liquidator to try to recover the millions of dollars invested in the project. The liquidator confirmed today that he was discussing the sale of the land with half a dozen consortiums interested in building shopping centres, although perhaps not as big as Hooker's 80,000 square metre extravaganza. If a new project does begin, it will not have the support of the neighbouring Cardiff Chamber of Commerce. Far from being concerned that a new centre would take away business, Chamber President Richard Devon says it couldn't compete with Cardiff.
Business is hard enough as it is. The viability of the Glendale Centre has always been in question, and even more so today.
Cardiff is fighting to improve its chances of survival amidst a growing number of large suburban centres. The Chamber is calling for the council to spend $100,000 taken from local development levies to create more car parking.
It's worked well elsewhere. You take Chatswood in Sydney, where it's become the hub of the area, and I believe that orderly accumulation of land and proper planning can lead to that sort of situation.
The tanker, loaded at the Coppers plant in Newcastle and bound for Kurnell, was rounding the corner from Parry Street into Stewart Avenue when it clipped the median strip and overturned. Fortunately, the normally busy Stewart Avenue was free of traffic. And equally luckily, the driver was able to scramble virtually uninjured from the crushed cabin of his semi-trailer. However, the legacy of the accident is a massive clean-up job. The tanker was carrying 30,000 litres of creosote-based material, kept liquid by a heating system built into the tank. The hot creosote flowed freely from the ruptured tank, but thickened quickly as it cooled. The unique problem with this spill is that it's a heated tanker, so it means that this creosote-based material, as it cools, is beginning to set. And even in contact with the road, it's already started to solidify, which means where it's running down drains, it has great potential to clog them for some time. Unable to completely stem the flow from the gaping holes in the tanker, firemen have built makeshift dams in an attempt to stop the creosote flowing down into drains. An added hazard are fumes from the hot creosote, which affected at least one fireman at the scene. Police say the fumes could cause nausea and do advise residents to keep clear. It's expected the clean-up operation will take some hours.
Members of a dozen waterfront unions left this morning's meeting vowing to oppose privatisation of port assets or handling services. Union leaders say they supported restructuring of the port, provided that wharf workers were retained under MSB agreements. Now they say a draft strategy released by the MSB provides for up to half the workers to be sold off to private enterprise with no job guarantees.
The port, over a period of time, because of the union's commitment, has become far more efficient. And we believe it can go a further way down the track. But a lot of those assets that are currently up for sale are profit-making assets. In actual fact, are returning monies to the public purse. So obviously they're not inefficient. We recognise that there's a great deal can be done in the port to make it more efficient. There's no reason why that can't be done through the Port Authority and with the existing workforce.
The MSB won't be involved in the wholesale sell-off of assets. In fact, many of the port facilities are already privately owned. What they are trying to shed are their service agreements. In other words, they're saying to port users, we won't be loading and unloading your vessels from now on, you'll have to go to private enterprise. In the past, unions have accepted the closure of inefficient operations such as the Basin coal loader and even welcomed job opportunities created by its possible conversion to a container handling facility. But union leaders question the sale of other profitable operations.
Those assets that are being sold are profit-making assets. So if a public sector is making profits, we feel it becomes an ideological question of privatisation merely for privatisation's sake.
5 vessels are affected in the port by the 24-hour stoppage. Offshore, another 5 are waiting. Union leaders will meet again on Wednesday to plan further industrial action.
The 10 hospital laundry workers know about hard work, but for the last 5 years they've tried to make life a little easier, each investing $1 a week in the jackpot lotteries. The group pools the money over a couple of months, then buy up big on $2 tickets. Normally they shop at a Hunter Street newsagent, but a change this week was worth $100,000.
One of the members said that there was a paper shop that was getting a lot of prizes and that's where he put them on it.
The mystery newsagent in Mayfield has had 2 big lottery prizes in the last 6 months, plus a lotto win. Celebrating their good fortune, the group hasn't let the spoils go to their heads. Next week, $2,000 is going on a night out for their 36 laundry workmates.
Now in their 60th year, the Greens are the first Newcastle club to cash in on the code's relaxation of sponsorship rules. In exchange for a cool $7,500, they'll deck out their players in jerseys with a Closter Ford logo. It's a break with tradition, but club officials say it doesn't compromise the amateur nature of the code.
The players aren't receiving a financial gain at the end of the season. The players don't get paid. They still have to contribute towards their playing on the field. It costs roughly about $85 a player to get them on the park for the year.
After a spirited training session tonight, the official handover took place. The Greens predict the deal will help attract more juniors to the game and boost their chances in gaining representative honours. They say other clubs are bound to follow suit so as to block the inroads League is making into the code. The reigning premiers will return to the paddock this weekend, and the indications are they're ready for a fast and furious season.
Newcastle Auto Wreckers has stood on its Pacific Highway frontage for 50 years and on Tuesday was named in State Parliament by Richard Face as a terrible mess. Mr Face claimed rats, snakes and vermin are living on the wrecking yard and invading surrounding properties. The 3-hectare property spreads in a horseshoe with a set of separately owned shops in the middle. Shop owners today refused to talk publicly about the unsightly mess surrounding their property, fearing reprisals. The owner of the wrecking yard, Archie Vitadello, also refused to speak on camera. But Mr Vitadello did tell me that yes, he was guilty of not keeping his landscaping up to scratch, but recent wet weather had prevented him from getting a mower in. When I asked him about the claims about rats and snakes, he replied that yes, they may live here, but they have to eat somewhere, and pointed towards the nearby shops. Mr Face says persistent requests by local authorities for the yard to be tidied have been met with scant regard, and by bringing the matter to the attention of all state government departments, heavier action may be taken to clean up the eyesore. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
It's been a great start to 1990 for the Newcastle Knights in all grades, with 8 wins from 9 matches played. The President's Cup team leads its competition undefeated, the reserve grade is also undefeated, and the first grade has won 2 out of 3 games. The Knights are equal second in the club championship. Yesterday at the ISC, Alan McMahon's Chargers ripped into their work with plenty of gusto and always had the Magpies on the back foot. The pack was brilliant, with teenage sensation Paul Harrigan leading the way, with blockbusting defence and fearless runs in attack. Rothman's medalist Mark Sargent had his best game for the year and was rewarded with the final try.
Turns it inside to Sargent. Sargent's on the boil. Sargent will score under the post. Oh, and a well-deserved try to the big fella.
For McMahon, it was an excellent team performance.
Yeah, they all chipped in and they all contributed, and it was certainly a great display, and it was an encouraging team display. And as you said, everybody chipped in, and if we continue to get everybody to do their bit, well, things will go okay.
The Knights were unlucky not to win by more, as they had 2 tries disallowed. One to Jeff Doyle, who may have a suspected fractured cheekbone, and Tony Kemp, who dropped the ball over the line. What a way for new Chief General Manager Mike Armstrong to begin his new career at the club.
A really great start, a trifecta again. We got the trifecta against North, and even though I hadn't officially started, I thought that was good enough, and we were a bit unlucky against Manly in the second half. But yesterday, superb in all departments. Couldn't fault them.
Today's launch of the Newcastle CBD Transport and Development Study by Deputy Premier Wal Murray follows 18 months of discussions on the future of the SRA-owned Honeysuckle goods yard. But though this site is central to the study, options discussed open up new avenues for the future development of the city.
And that is to return the central business district of Newcastle to the water. It has been cut off for so long.
The rail line to Newcastle has long been seen as the barrier. The study's recommendation is to change what's referred to as Newcastle's long Main Street syndrome by terminating the rail line at Civic and developing the Honeysuckle goods yard with shops, hotels and houses. But Mr Murray, speaking to ministers, local politicians and business leaders, denied that these plans were a cover-up for a fire sale.
Because in the last few months it has been suggested by some that the study and the steering committee directing it were merely ways of justifying the removal of the rail services and a government land fire sale.
This option is less financially efficient to the government, costing between $8 and $10 million per year.
The government is totally committed to Newcastle's economic revitalisation, and the right decision on Honeysuckle and further down the track on the dockyard will lay the groundwork for that to occur.
Now the public is being asked to comment on the study's options and make their submissions before the 1st of June. Helping to coordinate this will be the Hunter Economic Development Council.
Newcastle would run the real risk of having a disinvestment syndrome post the earthquake, but I think that this is so significant and so positive and something that Newcastle can really grab hold of that it should avoid that. I keep likening it to something of the Darling Harbour syndrome that I think has done so much for revitalising the city of Sydney, and I think this can for the city of Newcastle.
Today's announcement finally appears to seal the fate of Royal Newcastle's York Wing, a building that's attracted heated controversy since the earthquake rocked its foundations. It and the adjoining North Wing have been the subject of bitter political wrangling. For weeks after December 28, the buildings captured the headlines. The Area Health Service declared they should be demolished in the interests of public safety. The National Trust thought otherwise, declaring both wings repairable and of heritage significance. However, the Area Health Service Board has resolved to proceed with demolition of the York Wing, the Link Building and the service block. The board claims it has no other option, bearing in mind the deterioration of the buildings due to their harsh marine setting. The Government Insurance Office will confer with demolishers and a decision on the successful tenderer is expected on Wednesday. It's understood the buildings will be reduced to their concrete base, with the whole area including the North Wing fenced off. The future of the prime oceanfront site is still undecided. The Area Health Service is revealing little, only declaring its intention to rethink plans for redevelopment.
The giant Ming Wisdom was the only coal ship to sail out of Newcastle Harbour today. It was loaded before more than 500 port staff walked off the job for a mass meeting over the planned Rationalisation program. It was the second such meeting in a week. Last time workers decided to delay action until unions had met with port management. That meeting took place yesterday, but with neither party satisfied with what the other had to offer, the plan to begin rolling strikes was accepted unanimously when put to a vote this morning. And it was an immediate start. More than 100 foremen walked out of the meeting and off the job. The result was no supervision of the coal loading operations, and that forced a shutdown. Today's strike involved workers from the Maritime Water Industry Salaries Employees Union and the Building Workers Industrial Union. But workers from 10 other unions will also be involved in the planned stoppages, which will be called anywhere at any time. The present strike will end at midnight tonight, and today it left 4 vessels sitting idle. Port manager Jeff Connell admitted such stoppages will have drastic effects on the port's productivity levels, particularly if they continue to be called without warning.